Royal Rumble 2023 is now in the history books. And I don't know if Vince McMahon is actually back in charge of creative or not, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he's not, because most don't believe that he is. If so, I would say this is probably the second best show of the Triple H era so far. I think Survivor Series War Games might be a tiny bit better, but nevertheless, this Royal Rumble was a hell of a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and for different reasons. I was noticing that a lot of folks seem to have been a bit let down by this Royal Rumble. By the way, the show was live from San Antonio, Texas. This is the fourth Rumble in San Antonio, and I believe the third one in the Alamo Dome. Great building, great building, great atmosphere, and a great crowd tonight. I will say that. Great. Kudos to the fans who were there because the crowd was phenomenal. But I think what was going on here, y'all, is that I think people were expecting some, like, big surprises, and there were a couple of surprises, none of which were, like, massive, like Ronda Rousey or somebody like, like a big star coming back, like we've seen in previous Rumbles, when she did come back, or like Lesnar being a surprise entrant. He was going to be in the Rumble as it was announced on SmackDown. But what the Royal Rumble did, what this pay-per-view did better than almost any other show, and especially more than almost anything AEW has put out in the past year, has been the incredible amount of storytelling in this show. Right, and the reason I'm not trying to compare it to AEW, I think AEW Revolution of last year, I think really peaked AEW. That was a phenomenal, tremendous show, and the storylines going into that were great. This show, though, instead of focusing on gimmicks and things like that, it really put the focus on storytelling, not only with the Royal Rumble matches, but also with the main event. So if you like storytelling, if you like little segments here and there, if you like sort of stories that build on each other, you definitely are going to like this show. I thought it was a phenomenal show as far as telling a story goes, and that was cool. So, but it wasn't all perfect. There were some weaker things. So the show opened, interestingly enough, with the return of Pat McAfee, and that got a huge pop. I was happy. College football is over and Pat is back, and I'm happy with that. So I loved it. I love the fact that the way this was set up, it had like a big, long sort of, the aisleway had that curve, like what we often see with baseball stadiums. And so, each entrance took, it wasn't like they were right at the ringside. It took a bit of time to get there. But yeah, Pat McAfee was back. He called the show with Michael Cole and Corey Graves. They opened with the 30-man Royal Rumble. Now, that surprised me because, and this is not a gender thing, but there was a lot more interest going into the men's Rumble than the women's because of the return of Cody Rhodes and all the rumors of who could appear. However, the women's Rumble winner was also undecided for a long time. I went completely 5-0 with my picks. All of my predictions were accurate. Cody Rhodes did win the men's Royal Rumble. But before we get to that, the fact that the men's Royal Rumble opened the show immediately told me they were going to end with Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. I didn't think the women were going to go on last. That tells me they were going to end with that match, which immediately, me being a longtime wrestling fan, I've been a fan of this business since 1989, yo. That long ago, I have been a fan of professional wrestling, and I've seen every Royal Rumble, most of them live when they first aired. I can tell you that the fact they put this on first was basically them telling us angle alert for the main event. Like, I knew that by the time this show ended, one of two things was going to happen, or both. The Rock was actually going to make a surprise appearance to challenge Roman Reigns at the end of the night, or they were finally going to have the Sami Zayn turn. And one of those two things definitely happened. I just knew. I've been watching wrestling so long. I knew it. I called it. I was right. Now, when it comes to the Rumble, so there were three guys. Well, I want to first tell the story of the Rumble. So Sheamus and Gunther were number 1 and number 2, okay? Gunther was number 1, Sheamus number 2. And a lot of the story of this show, a lot of the story of this Rumble match, that is, was Sheamus and Drew McIntyre together, working together against whatever enemies came against them. And they really showed it a lot here. I'm not sure if they're going back to being a tag team or what the plan is, but Sheamus and Drew working together was a big story. Also, this show did so much for Gunther. Gunther was number one and lasted all the way to be the semifinalist. And that means that this man, for a guy who was stated to look chunky, this, that, and the third, the man is a cardio machine, which many of you who have watched him on the Indies and in NXT UK, you already know this. The dude is an animal, and we got to see him interact with everybody. Yes, we got to see Walter interact with Brock Lesnar. Yes, we got to see him interact with Seth Rollins. We got to see him interact with Logan Paul. We got to see him interact with Omos. Like, literally, they put Walter out there to interact with everybody on the roster that was in this Royal Rumble match, and it did so much for him. So, the highlights, there weren't that many highlights early on. I must say that I think Kofi Kingston was supposed to land on a rolly chair, but his feet hit the ground, so I think that was botched again. So I guess that didn't happen. Brock Lesnar came in as number 12 and was eliminated. He kicked ass, and he was eliminated by Bobby Lashley. And as I said on my Twitter, I said it days ago, Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley is one of the planned matches for WrestleMania. They're going to do a story where Lashley's going to reunite with the Hurt Business to give him backup against Brock. So in this match, Lashley eliminated Brock, and when that happened, Brock snapped and threw the steel steps around, choked out some referees. He was really upset. But it was funny and cool because that's very in character for the Brock Lesnar character. So Brock may have screwed Bobby Lashley on Raw, but Lashley just eliminated Lesnar from the Royal Rumble. So easy enough. Your match for WrestleMania is made. Rey Mysterio was supposed to be number 17. But instead, what happened was Dominic came out as number 18 wearing Rey's mask. So I think what the story was supposed to be, they didn't say it for the live crowd, I don't think, but what the story was supposed to be is that Dominic laid out Mysterio in the back, and Mysterio never made it to the Royal Rumble. And I think that's going to lead to Rey versus Dominic at WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Now, another surprise that we got Booker T. He made his return, looked in incredible freaking shape, did the bookend, did the spinneroonie, but then Gunther threw him out. Also, Johnny Gargano was in the match, but he didn't do anything. And he has new music that I'm not a fan of. I like his old music more. So Damian Priest went in. So the entire Judgment Day except Rhea Ripley was in the match. And then guess who came out and does number 24? Edge. Another big return, big shocker. Last time we saw him and Beth get laid out. Edge comes in there and they have a big brawl. Edge ends up eliminating some of the members of the Judgment Day, which led to Rhea Ripley attacking Edge, which led to Beth Phoenix attacking Rhea Ripley. So we've already got some feuds going into February and March. I have a feeling that the Edge feud with the Judgment Day is probably going to get blown off by WrestleMania. I could see an Edge Finn Balor one-on-one match at WrestleMania. Don't know what they're going to do, but there you go. I really loved Edge's interactions with Seth Rollins. Remember they had that awesome Hell in a Cell in 2021? So that was great. So then things got interesting. Ricochet was 28, and then Gunther eliminates Sheamus and McIntyre, and that was huge. Sheamus was in there for over 50 minutes, yo. Man, and Walter, the cardio machine. Then Logan Paul came in as number 29. Everyone attacked him. Then he hit Ricochet with a buckshot lariat, better than anything that freaking Hangman Page has ever done. And then we had the Strowman Ricochet team up. That happened. Then number 30 was Cody Rhodes, who got the fireworks. Now, this was interesting storytelling because really having Cody go in early and overcome the odds is a bit better story than him coming in at number 30, getting the best number. But what happened was he had to go in there and survive against his old nemesis, Seth Rollins. He had to survive against Logan Paul. There was this spot, right? I've never seen this ever, yo. Even at indie shows. Ricochet and Logan Paul did like a double springboard from opposite sides of the ring, and they collided in midair in the middle of the ring. It was almost like a cartoon spot, but way more wacky. It was brutal, dude. I loved it so very much. So Strowman got thrown out by Logan Paul and Ricochet, which was interesting. And then Theory eliminates Ricochet. And then the final four was Cody Rhodes, Austin Theory, Gunther, and Seth Rollins. Now, I love that. Now, Logan Paul was there too, but they left him out to kind of keep him, a bit of a secret. And I like that because you have Gunther, you have Rollins the veteran, you've got Theory and Gunther being two guys that are going to be pushing very, very, very much so this year, the Intercontinental and U.S. champions. So, they got some prestige there. And you've got Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes had to overcome everything, including a very game Logan Paul, and who eliminated Seth Rollins. So I'm guessing we're going to see Seth Rollins against Logan Paul at WrestleMania. And that's another match that I think could be pretty good. Logan Paul is way better than anybody gives him credit for, dude. So then we have the final sequence, yo. This final sequence, was as good, if not better. It's probably the best, finishing sequence to any Royal Rumble ever with two final guys. If you remember back in 2007, they had The Undertaker and Shawn. They were the last two guys in. They had this crazy performance where they were almost out and they came back in, and almost out but they came back in. They really did a great job of that. Sort of teasing eliminations, but then they're surviving. So Cody has to overcome this angry monster Gunther, who's also got an incredible amount of cardio, and he's chopping Cody in the torn pec. See, there's a lot of storytelling on this show, yo. People don't seem to appreciate good storytelling. This had great storytelling. And so you have the monster Gunther, just all over Cody. Cody's fighting back, trying to hit different moves. Finally hits the crossroads and clotheslines him out of the ring, and he is the Rumble winner. So Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39 is happening in a few months. So that's good. The Rhodes and Gunther stuff really made this match awesome. It was definitely not the best Royal Rumble match, but it was the best one since 2020 and one of my favorite Rumbles of all time. I had a great time watching this, and that finishing sequence was just mind-blowing. That finishing sequence, man, the near falls, that really helped this match quite a bit. So, things that were not good. LA Knight, Bray Wyatt in a pitch black match. Basically what this is basically a glow-in-the-dark match. They lowered the lights and had these neon lights, green and oranges, and Bray Wyatt was wearing glow-in-the-dark makeup, and LA Knight was wearing glow-in-the-dark tights. This sucked. I mean, it just wasn't very good. It was all more story-based. Wyatt pretty much just squashed LA Knight. For lack of a better term, bro, he just dominated him. So I would assume this feud is over, but it's not, because apparently after the match, I don't know how to explain this, so I'll do my best. Bray Wyatt had a new mask on, he transformed. He starts to go after LA Knight. LA Knight leaves. He's like, I'm out of here. Corey Graves even said it was like a horror movie. He hits him with a kendo stick, a glow-in-the-dark one. Wyatt no-sells it. So it's kind of like what The Fiend used to be. Then they go to this staging platform thing. I don't really know what that is because the angles were weird. And so they put LA Knight in the middle of this staging, and then Uncle Howdy shows up on a big scaffold and drops an elbow. I'm not making this up, y'all. He drops an elbow from the top of the structure, and there's a giant explosion. So I don't know if the story is that LA Knight has been destroyed by Uncle Howdy or what, but they showed these adult Firefly Funhouse people, sort of like what they did when Bray Wyatt first came back. But yes, folks, Uncle Howdy did an elbow drop. I just don't know what to say about that, man. This was the Bray Wyatt stuff, man. It's creative, but where's it going? We'll see. Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, predictable. It was under 8 minutes. Felt like a Raw main event. Well-worked match, though. I think that Alexa, for somebody being so thin as her and petite, she can definitely take bumps. Bianca showed a lot of her athleticism in this match, doing crazy moves, flips, power moves. I mean, the thing is that the match felt somewhat competitive, but it really wasn't that much competitive. Like, it was just a basic match that Bianca won. Not bad, just, we all knew that was going to happen. We all knew. Then we had the 30-woman Royal Rumble. Now, this one, unlike previous years, did not have that many surprises. You had some NXT call-ups. You had that. Some pretty interesting names from NXT. You had B-Fab, who was like a joke entrant. You had, Roxanne Perez was probably, the coolest entry. Damage Control was in this. Becky was in this. Natty, Shayna Baszler. No Ronda. Again, still no Ronda Rousey. I don't know if she's ever coming back. I was pleasantly surprised, in a good way, for sure, to see Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark was phenomenal in this. It was great. But like I said, not really how a few other years they'd have Tori and Trish and Molly Holly. The big surprise in this match was Nia Jax at number 30. Because we haven't seen her in, 2-3 years? And I was waiting for Randy to come out there and RKO her that 1 year. But, Nia Jax came out and they did the gimmick where all the women, stared at her and then threw her out. So she's probably not going to... I don't know if she's going to stick around. But basically it was 11 women. And eventually it narrowed down to it being Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan. They were the last two. Prior to that, Asuka was there. She made her return with somewhat of a new look, maybe inspired by Great Muta. But basically what happened was Rhea Ripley won. She almost got eliminated. She did a head scissor and she won. So my predictions were flawless for this Rumble. Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley wins. Rhea Ripley will be getting a title shot against either Bianca or Charlotte Flair. I don't think this match was that great. It was fine. It wasn't that great. The men's one I enjoyed more because of the great storytelling. But I wouldn't say either Rumble is among the best, even though I think that I loved watching that first men's Rumble. I have to go back and watch it again before I really rank it that high, but it was great because of that ending sequence. This match didn't really have that, but it was still good, and it's part of Rhea Ripley's big push. So then we have the main event. Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Sami Zayn was at ringside with Paul Heyman. And so the story of the match was that Owens and Reigns were fighting bravely, but what ends up happening is Reigns decides to get really brutal. And he does this thing where he smashes Kevin Owens' head on the steel steps, but the back of his head, like a Russian leg sweep almost, and it looked really nasty. And then he speared him through the barricade. So the story here was that Kevin Owens was doing the best he could, but Roman Reigns just too much for him. And again, told a great story. And then again, the post match was a hell of a story too. We're gonna get to that. So, because really it was about the post match angle. You know what I mean? It really was the post match angle. Some near falls, push up powerbomb, whatever, stuff like that. But what happens is Roman, after smashing Kevin Owens' head to the steps, brings him back in the ring. He hits Reigns with a big right hand. There's a ref bump, whatever, but that's not really that important. What the finish was, he hits him with a right hand, and then Roman Reigns just goes in there and spears him, and 1, 2, 3. That's it. Game over. Roman Reigns retains. Now, earlier in the match, there was a spot where Reigns asked Zayn to get him a chair. And that was earlier in the match. Now, the post-match, though, the match was good. But the post-match was the big angle that we have been waiting for a very long time. If anybody tells you that pro wrestling does not do storylines, man, they have not been watching what's been going on now, because the Bloodline Sami Zayn stuff is the best stuff the company's done in years, my friends, in years. So the Bloodline starts to tee off on Kevin Owens, and they're about to actually give Sami his own necklace of flowers, and Roman Reigns says no. he hasn't proven himself yet. So they handcuff Kevin Owens. First, they do all their moves on him, then they handcuff him to the corner, and Roman's about to whack Kevin Owens with a chair. Sami Zayn says, no, you're better than this. Don't do this. You already won the match. This is beneath you. Logical stuff. And then Roman gives Sami the chair and says, you do it. Sami gets the chair. He thinks about it. They tease it for a long time. He eventually hits Roman Reigns, choosing a side, and he gets his ass kicked by the Bloodline, who lay both Steen and Generico, Owens and Zayn out. But the big story was the fact that Jey Uso was watching all this, but he walked off. He was not ready to make a decision yet. He was upset that Sami is now out of the Bloodline. And this has been the culmination of a multi-month long story. This is like 6 months now. And it's just some of the best storytelling that wrestling's done in years, yo. And so Roman is leaving the ring with Solo and with Jimmy Uso and Paul Heyman, and even he's not sure about Jay's future. So obviously, you don't have to be a fool to know that they're going to do Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against the Usos at WrestleMania. I mean, that's going to be the obvious match. It's going to be a great match. I also noticed that when Reigns was beating up Sami Zayn, the crowd chanted, fuck you, Roman, which it's funny because I knew that was going to happen too. I knew the minute that Roman and the Bloodline turned on Sami, even though he did turn on them first, right? Technically he did. But I knew that once that happened, they were going to turn on Roman, and maybe not every crowd, but this crowd certainly did. A good show. I had fun with it. The second best Triple H show of the Triple H era so far, and the stories is really what made it special. The progression of the stuff in the Royal Rumble, there was a lot of little nuances and little things about, like, for example, the Rumble rewarded you for having wrestling knowledge because we saw teases of matches that we hadn't seen in a while on the indie circuit, for example, with Gunther. And in the title match, there was a lot of stuff with Kevin Steen, El Generico, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and their previous names, and Roman Reigns. So great storytelling. This was a show for storytelling and the right stepping stone to move forward with Raw, SmackDown, Elimination Chamber, and eventually, of course, WrestleMania. So again, thumbs up show. What did you think? Let me know down below, and we'll talk more about this real soon. Take care.